Okay, hopefully it's working this time.
Okay, hopefully I don't know whose Wi-Fi it is, but it's something's going wrong. Okay, yeah, I can hear you this time. So, okay, why don't you start by introducing yourself and your background?
Hi guys, so yes, my name is Olivia Gyapong. I am a senior at James Hubert Blake High School in Montgomery County, Maryland, and I am president of Youth Creating Change. Now, Montgomery County is the largest county in Maryland by population, not sure about by area. We have more than 1 million residents here, and something that we love doing here at YCC is connecting Montgomery County student activists from all 25 of our high schools with access to mentorship, grassroots organizer training, grant funding of up to $20,000 as given or as raised by our parent organization, which is Communities United Against Hate. So we really love supporting youth activists. We're not an activist organization ourselves, but we really do. We love training, building connections with, and helping to foster the growth of all of our counties' youth activists. And then because we're not able to congregate in the usual Montgomery County location that we do, we've taken YCC expand. We're helping youth activists from across the country.
That's amazing. And it's been really nice learning about you guys since this summer and working with you guys and everything that you do. So before we'll go a little bit more into YCC, but first I want to talk about you. You're a senior in high school right now, right? You're ready to graduate. Do you have any
Yep.
college plans?
So I do have college plans. I hope to attend a 4-year university. I applied to 10 schools and I've heard back from the University of Missouri. So yeah, go Tigers. Um,
Yay.
yeah, I'm really happy about that. I'm applying to mostly schools or day schools as they're called, just because I love the activism portion of journalism. It's kind of contentious as to whether or not journalists should use their platform to be activists. I'm personally in favor of journalists, um, maybe not like necessarily going out to advocate for one side of a story over the other. I think remaining objective is key. But also, I love the chance journalists have, especially foreign correspondents, which is what I want to do, to go out into other parts of the world that might not have their stories told as often. They might be overlooked. They might be, cast aside as a third world developing war-torn country. And I just love the idea of going into those countries, telling those rich cultural stories and kind of shifting the narrative because everyone has an amazing story to tell. You don't have to be from a developed first world country or anything like that to have an amazing or worthy story. Everyone has great cultural traditions. Everyone has worthy stories, and I love the idea of making the West, I think, a little less ignorant when it comes to other cultures.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the heart of journalism is, sharing stories of those who are unheard. And I used to want to be a journalist, actually. That's where like my whole track was looking towards in high school and whatnot. But I stopped for that very reason that like it was just so much objectivity and I'm more interested in being an activist where I can, speak on my passions and stuff. But so I guess on that topic, what introduced you to, prior to YCC, what introduced you to the world of like advocacy and activism and things like that?
Yeah, so I guess I had always loved writing, but my activism story is unique because I'd actually say that I got into activism for the wrong reasons. I love event planning. I just like love the idea of throwing like a Great Gatsby style party or whatever. And so I got involved. I was approached by one of my friends over the summer before 10th grade about co-founding this club at my school called um, oh goodness, YAC, Youth Advocacy Club. YAC is what it was called. And the idea was that we would each take committees. So there was one committee advocating petitions about a number of different topics, dedicated to organizing a youth peace conference in conjunction with the Sandy Spring Museum. One of my other friends, my good friend who introduced me to the club or introduced the idea of the club to me, held an International Refugee Day in conjunction with the IRC of Silver Spring, Casa de Maryland, and a couple of other well-known refugee rescue networks. And then there was me, and I'm a minority. I'm half African American, half white. And something that I kind of heard of but didn't really know too much about was the opportunity gap and the achievement gap in not only Montgomery County high schools but around the country, and how that was negatively affecting minorities. And Blake is a majority minority school, so most of our students are African American. We have a heavy Latino or Latinx population at our school. Not too many white kids, a couple of Asian kids, but it's predominantly like they're the minorities that are often um, underprivileged because of the systems working against them. And I did some research, but like not too much. And the solution that I came up with was just like hosting a gala to recognize their achievements. And at the time, I was proud of that because I mean, pulling off the gala took a lot of work. I got State Delegate Pamela Queen to the Maryland House of Delegates come as a keynote speaker. She gave the seniors who were in attendance certificates and a scholarship opportunity, and continued to reach out to me with opportunities for Blake's minority students after the fact. For example, we're an art school, like not an arts magnet, but we have an art signature program. So Delegate Queen passed along a jazz masterclass opportunity for our minority students at Blake. And that was really helpful. But then I think YCC is where I really learned that the whole purpose of activism, it's not something to be taken lightly. You don't like just throw a party and expect that to be like the end all be all, because a party's not going to fix anything. Like I said, I was proud of the gala. People were really emotional. They were really happy that I was taking the time to, give a speech, give them a party, recognize their achievements and whatnot. But I really learned through YCC and through YAP, actually, these activism projects over the summer, that the true purpose of activism is to help people the way that they need to be helped, not the way that you think they need to be helped. That means going to the affected people you're trying to help, asking them, the magic wand question. If you could wave a magic wand and fix the problem, one, like, what is the problem that you're trying to fix? Two, if money wasn't an object, if time wasn't an object, etc., like how would you fix your problem? And so what that does for activists is it refocuses kind of your narrative. It helps you overcome whatever unconscious biases you may be approaching your activism with, and it allows you to kind of bridge the gap between your own biases and the actual needs, the reality of that the people you're trying to help are facing. So yeah, even though I'm a minority, and I suppose like I probably have felt or experienced some sort of like societal racism or discrimination, but it's not ever like I feel very privileged. I don't feel like I've ever been the subject of that. Like I know many of my peers have, and so I didn't have that reality. I didn't have that experience. I didn't know what my minority peers really needed. Instead of a party, I had the YCC, and like I said, we're not an activist organization. We are an organization that supports activists. So like still to this day, I don't know the best way to overcome the opportunity or achievement gaps. And I'm leaving that up to the people who are going to do the work, who are talking to the minority students who are successful, but feel like their accomplishments aren't being heard or recognized, because those people are on the ground, they're doing the work, they're talking to the actual minority students who are being affected, and they're taking the steps that they need to take in order to resolve the problem. So that's kind of my activist origin story.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said something about you're privileged, and that the first and foremost important thing is knowing the needs of the people you're trying to help in order to help them properly. Because I feel like I know you don't have all the answers and everything like you just said, but that's a really, really important step that I think is important for anyone who considers themselves an activist, is to establish the story of self, know your identity before you know how to help others. But I guess, the group that you started in high school, that was your first taste of organizing, you'd say, right? That was the catalyst to make you understand all of that. So how did you transition from that to YCC?
So, I had a second kind of foray into activism as well. I'm a Girl Scout, proud Girl Scout, go Girl Scouts. But I completed my Girl Scout Gold Award, which it requires 80 hours of community service. A girl has to organize a project mostly on her own. She has to go through the process of coming up with an idea, submitting a formal proposal to the council, getting a sponsor to help her. But it can't be a family member. It can't be anyone she knows through Girl Scouts. It's really a completely, separate project where the girl has to strike out on her own and demonstrate these core leadership characteristics of Girl Scouts. It spells out girl. The G stands for go-getter, the I stands for innovator, the R stands for risk taker, and the L stands for leader. So you're supposed to exhibit the aspects of girl when you're carrying out this project. So that one I did more research on. That one I went into the community and tried to figure out what people needed, or like I tried to fill a gap I saw. And so something that I saw that I could fill was hydroponic or like sustainable where so I was kind of proud of that project as well, but I would say like that was another experience with activism I had. And then eventually through YC and just it's kind of funny because I didn't really transition into YCC from YAC or from Girl Scouts. I was involved in a lot of other clubs at my high school, and they were service oriented, like class council. But I was involved in a lot of academic clubs too, and from that I met the former president of our school's SGA, and he reached out to me over the summer because he knew that I was interested in activism. I liked writing, I liked organizing. I would consider myself a pretty okay planner. And he talked to Ethan Tiao, who was the former president of YCC. He was one of the 3 co-founders of the program. He now goes to Stanford. But YCC had a launch party event or kickoff in 2018 when it was first started. And my friend Joseph, the president of the SGA, went to that event, and then he told me about it and said that YCC was looking to expand into all of Montgomery County's high schools with what was called a school branch outreach coordinator. So the idea was there would be 1 or 2 people in every Montgomery County high school who would be the kind of YCC point person for that school. So they would go in and spread the message about YCC to the school's cultural clubs, organizing clubs, activism clubs, groups like BSUs, MSPs, GSAs, all of those groups. So that's what I did. That was like my first taste of it. And then for the gala, actually, for my YAC project, I joined as a YCC fellow, which I think is cool because now as president, I can say I've had experience as a fellow, so I know what the fellows are going through. But I also have a bit of that administrative experience because I was a fellow, I was a school branch outreach coordinator at the same time, and then towards the end of my fellowship / outreach coordinator experience, I took on a larger role as one of the organizers for our annual social change conference, which is this big conference in like April, May or June, one of those months. And more than 200 Montgomery County residents on average show up. We have keynote speakers. All the fellows show off their projects and how much progress they've made on their projects from the beginning of the year. We have the fellows speak on themed panels. So we have panels about things like climate change or like climate activism, climate action activism, bridging social gaps between different groups because we know activism is intersectional. We have groups or panels focused on groups that tackle diversity and the need for promoting diversity in Montgomery County, diversity and inclusivity. So we have a bunch of these like themed panels. There's a gallery walk where fellows again get to show off their projects. We have a keynote speaker that delivers some inspiring words. There's food, drinks, and the opportunity for mingling. It's just a whole big affair. So I had a role in planning that towards the end of my year as a fellow and outreach coordinator. And, by that point, not yet, but Ethan and then the 2 other co-founders, Kaden and Simon, again, they're all in college now. They were starting to look at people who could kind of take over the program when they were, going off to college to keep the program going. And so they identified me as one of those people. And so last year, I wasn't a fellow, and I ran the gala on my own. I actually found community help from the Sandy Spring Museum. Sadly, the gala didn't happen this year because of COVID. So I transitioned away from a fellow and into more administrative stuff. I helped in a bunch of different committees, basically learning all the jobs that a YCC president does, and then Ethan, Caden, and Simon graduated, and here I am. So I've been in every possible position that you can be in YCC, or at least I've had a taste of every possible position one can do in YCC. And yeah, so I wouldn't say actually that my activism got me into YCC. I would say that my organizational capabilities did. And I think that's an important distinction. And I was considering writing about this for a college application. I don't claim to be an activist because I don't devote that much time to it. I'm not like, there are some kids like, I mean, I don't know if you've had Uma Fox in here, but Uma Fox, Avery Smedley, my God, Luca Uderwolga, they are so amazing. I mean, the stuff that they do to advance their causes, it's just incredible. And that wasn't my story, but I am so glad that I can use my talents where I know my strengths to be in communication and organization, in planning, and like, presenting and running these grassroots organizer trainings, that I can help them. Because I mean, I don't do nearly as much as they do in terms of activism, but I've been in their shoes. I kind of know what they need. Despite not being super involved in activism at first, I do know like the kinds of organizational tools and tips that activists need to be successful. So I'm really glad that I can support them and what they do and like help our activists grow, because I know that what they're doing is so important and so incredible, and I think they need all the support that they can get.
And also, I would just say, I still would consider you an activist. Like, one thing that I learned working with YAP is that not everyone is suited for, the front lines, like someone like Avery or Luca would be. But that doesn't make you any less of an activist, if you're working on organizational stuff. Like, there's a lot of wheels to an engine, like Youth Activism Project, for example. And not everyone is, like our Anna for our social media team. She's one of the biggest activists I know, but she hates being on camera. And, like, no one ever sees her face, but no one would ever see how much she contributes to our organization, and like we wouldn't be able to like run without her. But yeah, and I also used to not consider myself an activist, just because I would make a huge distinction between I am an advocate for youth activists but not one myself. But like I feel like that's changed now, because I give opportunities for youth to be involved and give them the resources. So through that, I would consider myself an activist, an advocate, just like you. And obviously your organizational skills got you this far to be president. It seems like, you're very like well suited for leadership. So yeah, I want to ask you about the conception of YCC, since I know you weren't one of the co-founders, but can you like tell me a little bit of what it's like to be a fellow and like how to get involved?
Yeah, so YCC began in 2018. Again, it wasn't originally called YCC. It was called Yelp. And then they changed that because, they realized that Yelp was an actual like, search engine for like restaurants or whatever. But yeah, so Communities United Against Hate wanted to get more in touch with the youth activism community, because they had a lot of adult activists as members, but then John Randall, who has since passed away, founder of Our Voices Matter, which was this kind of like other youth activism incubator. He was, I think, one of the campaign managers for the Obama campaign back in 2008. He took Ethan, Caden, and Simon under his wing, gave them the very like first iterations of those YCC core like grassroots organizer trainings, and so that is how Yelp, the predecessor of YCC, got started. And then really like the idea of YCC after that, once YCC grew into like a countywide organization with many more members, we realized that we need to expand. We need to get the fellows access to mentors. So that's seasoned social justice activists like Lynn Harris, a great activist, so proud of her campaign running for the Montgomery County at-large Board of Education seat. She does great work for our fellows. They need access to grants, so KUA had a bunch of fundraisers, and YCC, I tried to put on a YCC fundraiser myself, and then they need access, we found out last year that the fellows needed time to connect with each other and build their own network, because from that, we had, I don't know if you've had Uriam Kone and JD Gorman on here, but they run this group called Connecting Cultures. And so it's this group that has joint dialogues between people at Walter Johnson and BCC about just like pressing social issues in the community. And that was a project, like a joint project that was started by YCC Fellows. And then we help fellows with project development. So it's not just people anymore who already come in with organizations or projects. We now are an incubator. So we help kids who maybe don't have concrete project ideas, but now through our more robust trainings, we're able to foster those connections, give them the support that they need so they can turn that idea into an activist reality. And so the process of a fellow, how I started is I went to the meeting, and at first I was like, okay, you know, I'm just here to get support for my gala. I want to figure out how to run this. I want to get the funding. I can get the decorations that I want to get, and like quite honestly, the amount of food I wanted to get because I'm a huge foodie. But I got there and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like at Blake, I wouldn't say that we're as involved, and this is like a problem in Montgomery County. East County kids aren't known for being as socially active as like the Down County kids at RM, Richard Montgomery, at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School, BCC, at the W schools, where those kids are often of more privileged backgrounds. Not all of them, but many of them are of more privileged backgrounds. Like their parents have more time to be involved. Whereas in East County, our kids are predominantly minorities. Their parents are working a lot of jobs. They can't always get the transportation they need to like after school clubs and activities. So I think that there's just like again, like that opportunity and achievement gap, which is something that I'm slowly trying to dissolve by getting some of my friends involved in like YCC and stuff. But I was like, oh my gosh, there are other kids in the county, like in my area. There's a room of what, like 30 other kids here who are all here for the same reason that I'm here, because they have a project, they're going to execute it, they're really passionate about what they're getting into. I was so inspired by kids like Luca, Uma, and Avery, who were just so knowledgeable about their projects and like about the issues that they were trying to resolve, whereas I did some like last minute research because I like had to give a presentation on it for YCC, like for the social change fair, and like actually through that I got, you know, more knowledgeable about the opportunity and achievement gaps, and so now I'm, I guess, more well versed in those issues. So I still, like I said before, don't have all the answers, but it was kind of mind blowing, and it really opened my eyes to how altruistic and just like pure, I would say, the mission of YCC is. Like, we as an organization really care about supporting one another, supporting youth activists, fostering that safe, reliable community. You'll often see YCC fellows supporting each other at events, or like, you know, participating in each other's drives. Like I said, coming together to even form joint projects. It's really touching. So I think the experience of a fellow, you know, you go to all the trainings, you do the worksheets that we assign you. It's not like homework or anything, but you work on the worksheets with mentors. You take that stuff away. I mean, your mind is just blown after every training, after people share out, after you learn some tips on how to be a more effective activist that completely like raise your activism game. I was definitely way more into activism and way more into like sustaining YCC after I went through the process of fellowship than I was when I started. So I mean, I would say to anyone watching, like, if you think that, you know, I mean, obviously, like, now in America, there's somewhat, like, of social pressure, I would say, to be an activist and, like, you know, not an armchair activist, or, like, not someone who's, like, on Instagram just, like, reposting stuff from Change or Feminist or whatever. Like, if you are really into changing your community and becoming involved in making your community better, I would say just go out and start. Like, come to one of our YCC meetings, follow at kua.ycc, at coah.ycc, and just see what it's all about. Because like I said, I wouldn't consider myself the strongest activist, but I definitely feel like I learned a lot through my fellowship experience.
Really resonated with that because I went to a down county school in Moco, and we weren't really represented in any of the student government associations or student council associations within the county. And the narrative was kind of just like we just didn't care as much, or we weren't educated or whatever. But that was just a huge misconception because when I joined MSP and then I became a county coordinator, I met people from other schools and other counties, and I just realized it was because they were distributed more resources and had families who would, who could afford more time towards these things, PTAs and booster clubs. And when we finally, it took a while, but when we finally got enough people interested, when I started my first group within high school and then within MSP, like I actually realized that a lot of students had a lot of strong opinions about things that mattered more than they did in W schools. But we just, never knew that our opinion mattered. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of students don't really know about opportunities like YCC and YP. They just don't know how to get involved. And that's partly why we do these lives, is so you guys could tell them. But I kind of wanted to, I know we're like reaching the time, but I kind of was curious about the like group work ethic and like leadership structure you guys have at YCC, like how you guys work together, and also now that it's done remotely.
Yeah, so we've made a couple changes because we've gone remote. Our partnership with YAP over the summer was a huge part in like how we organized our remote organization or like remote trainings. It was a little scary at first because we were like, oh my gosh, how is it going to work over Zoom? The part that I would say is the heart and soul of YCC are those connections that we can foster between fellows. We loved at the end of trainings last year, we would save like an entire 15 minutes at the end just for fellows to talk to each other about their issue areas, about the projects they were working on, about what they went over in the trainings, and like the insights that everyone took away from the trainings. It was just great to see people talk and plan and like, exchange contact information. We just loved building that community. So we were honestly very scared about what we were going to lose because of Zoom, but we think we found really good workarounds. So not a lot of stuff has changed in terms of what the committees actually do. Because we are on Zoom and because this is the third year of YCC, we have a priority deadline for returning fellows to submit their grant applications that ended just like this week. And then after the grant funding training in January, we're going to have the deadline for new fellows set so they can start applying for grants. And we know that probably not as many fellows are going to need grant money because like the opportunity to do things in person right now is slightly limited. But like in terms of the actual committee structure, there's me at the top as president, and then we have committee heads for each committee. So there's the outreach team, the grant funding team, the grassroots organizing team. Outreach and grassroots or grant funding is kind of self-explanatory, but the grassroots organizing team coordinates all of the trainings, so they set the training schedule and topics. There's the fellow mentor coordination team, and so our lovely chair for that, Meraki, she is the one who emails the fellows about training dates and times. She emails people Zoom links. She requests mentors. She sends the information to mentors that the grassroots organizing team has put together for that training. And the outreach team, they're responsible for actually building our fellow base. So they touch base, like we actually got a lot more school branch outreach coordinators, which was really surprising because I thought like, people wouldn't be as into doing stuff like over quarantine. But like I think people have more time than they used to, so they're able to like be on their phones more and reach out to people more like on social media. So we've gotten a few more school branch coordinators through those efforts. Aaron Tiao, Ethan's brother, leads that outreach team, and then we have really good who work with Aaron and our liaisons for other countywide groups like the countywide MSP, BSUs in a couple schools, MoCo Pride, MoCo for Change, etc. And then the grant funding, they're in charge of overseeing the grants, but that's kind of like our committee structure. And then like everyone, it's kind of all hands on deck to get the social change conference ready. And last year, our social change conference was just like we had videos and pictures crowdsourced from fellows along with like crowdsourced descriptions were like what they were originally planning on hold because of quarantine, and then we put those up for like a month of activism on our Instagram, and then we had our panels as we regularly would, but just like over Zoom, and we had those recorded so we can put them up on our YCC website. And then in terms of like trainings and the dynamic over trainings, we've gotten people seem to be like really into the trainings, which is awesome. I feel like we don't we aren't like really losing any of that connection. I mean, obviously it's harder to foster connections over Zoom, but people are like sharing out what they've learned in breakouts. They're sharing out what they learned through the trainings, whether that's in the chat or like live. We found a really good way of communicating and like giving mentors, or like having mentors give feedback to fellows on whatever they're working on, like the document for that day, for that breakout session. So I think that there is communication going on. It's still like a work in progress, but you have to figure out how to take attendance still, how to make sure that fellows are actually making concrete progress so they have something to showcase for a virtual or, you know, maybe in-person social change conference. There are still things to work out, and YCC itself, like, we're kind of ambitious because we wanted to change the program at the same time that we would have to adjust to like an all virtual training year. So we're figuring things out, but I think that we're still able to keep like the heart and soul of YCC alive.
Yeah, it's been a challenge for us too, in terms of like fostering relationships, like you said, it's kind of easy to get people, interested for a single meeting or like pique their interest in a certain topic, but to get people to come back has been a real challenge for me as director of outreach. I'm sure you can relate to that. So I actually really wanted to ask about your current initiatives that YCC is doing right now. So if you wanted to plug anything in this live.
We're not. I mean, I would plug our social changes. That's look for that like later in the spring. As of right now, YCC itself isn't doing anything. We're just running our trainings as per normal, but definitely like keep checking the YCC website or check YCC Instagram, because we do have a tutoring program ongoing. So we're revising our tutoring program actually. If you need help in math or English, and then like if you want to be a tutor for math or English, you can DM again at cuah.ycc and help out with tutoring, whether you want to be a tutor for SSL hours or whether you have a friend or you yourself need to be tutored in math or English. You can definitely reach out and you can also go to our website, which is https://kuamcmd.org/YCC-training. So really long link. But again, like you can just DM our Instagram or like go to the link in our bio. And we have a whole schedule up there for Zoom links. So we have hour-long Zoom sessions Monday through Thursday for tutoring in that area. So you can reach out to me through Instagram, go to the link in our bio, or email me, Olivia Gyapong 516@gmail.com. And then you can get more information about the tutoring program. I think it's an initiative that YCC is currently working on. But yeah, we love to support any other like Montgomery County based initiatives, like YPP's initiatives. Of course, we love supporting YAP as well. So yeah, I mean, if you want to plug anything, YCC will be happy to pass along the message. Same thing for like MCRSGA.
Yep, we love working with YCC. We love amplifying all the work you guys do. You can type anything you want like in the comments and stuff if you want to like keep it there, like any of the things you just said. So I guess my final question would just be, to wrap it up, what kind of advice would you give to people younger than you or even your age who want to get into the similar stuff that you're doing but kind of don't know how to apply themselves in that way?
So I would say, sorry, I just put my contact information in there. Don't rush into it. Don't expect yourself to be successful overnight. I often marvel at how I got to where I am right now. Never ever did I think that activism would become such an important part of my life, because like I said, I didn't even consider myself an activist when I first joined YCC. And this organization that's now nationwide. We have kids from Oregon, New Jersey, etc., coming to our trainings, like the Chicagoland area. It's insane how much you can do when you're just passionate about your work and when you're excited to do your work, when you feel like, this is like a cliche, but your cup is being filled by supporting others. And I think like people say that activism can never be truly selfless. Like there's always that self-serving aspect that like you feel good when you help other people, but I mean, enjoy that. We should all feel good about helping other people. And I don't think that's something to be ashamed of. Like, if you feel good about doing something, then continue doing that. And there's a need for activism in every way. If your activism is baking cookies for your neighbors to put a smile on their face during COVID, that's great, because then they're more likely to do something nice for another person that they meet at the grocery store. They're more likely to do something like pick up a postage stamp bill or whatever for their neighbor at the post office. Like, I think spreading kindness no matter what you do goes a long way. And then if you're young, you have time to figure out your passions. Just keep doing what you like doing, and then find a way to turn what you like doing into something that is going to help others. So again, like, if you love baking, I mean, the Dog Tag Bakery was on the news a couple days ago. I think, like, a portion of their proceeds goes to helping veterans. Maybe that's something you can do. If you really love drawing, we have a great fellow Helping Hands Club. They're now creating, like, Christmas cards for kids of incarcerated parents, and I think veterans. So, I mean, everyone has a talent, everyone has a passion, and you can turn that into something that's going to benefit others and benefit greater society. It doesn't have to be anything huge. There's a need for activism on all scales. Just make sure that you're turning something that you like doing into something that's going to help others.
Absolutely. Organize within what's within your capabilities, what you care about, and never feel bad about it, because at least you're thinking outside of yourself and looking towards others. I think that's amazing advice. Thank you so much. I have no more questions for you, but you've been lovely to have as a
Thanks.
guest. So nice talking to you again since the summer series.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I miss YFE.
I know, I miss YCC too. I feel like we haven't done something like that in a while, but hopefully we'll get back into, and I forgot to mention it, but if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about the summer training series that we held in collaboration with YCC this summer, that we amplified so hard on these lives, and it was a huge success in my opinion. I'm actually like working on connecting back with our participants and our registrants and stuff to see what they're doing and see if we helped. But yeah, I'll get back to you guys on the feedback I got on that. But yeah, other than that, I have nothing else for you. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Lily. Bye.
Bye. Hope you have a nice rest of your day.
You too.